Dimitri Cherny hopes a second run for Congress will get him to Washington next year. And in this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with him one-on-one. It is so good to see you.
Good to see you, Quintin.
Yes, I appreciate that. Let me start off with some developing news. As you know, State Representatives Wendell Gilliard and Justin Bamber are endorsing Bernie Sanders, and you are a supporter of Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, as we sit here right now, Cherny, what does that say about the First in the South primary coming up soon?
Well, what we're hoping it's going to say is that there's a larger number of people that have been showing up on the polls that are in support of Bernie in particular, but in general in support of what Bernie's talking about. And really what he's talking about is economic revolution. We're making America work for people that it just plain hasn't worked for many years.
Yeah. January 13th, you were surrounded by friends and supporters when you announced actually that you will be running for the 1st District congressional seat, which is currently held by Congressman Mark Sanford. And I'm wondering, where were you emotionally with that?
Emotionally with the announcement?
Right.
It's funny you use the word emotional, because I'm a very emotional guy. And if you saw the introduction by my friend Pastor Thomas Dixon,
right.
I was almost in tears after that great introduction he made for me. And Thomas and I have been working together out here for about a year and a half or so on all of the social justice issues that affect both of us. So yeah, I mean that was a very emotional day for me. But the whole reason I'm running for Congress is I think I've realized that I can do more to help my friends that I've been working with for the past couple of years, doing all the social justice work. I can do more to help them from Washington, give them sort of the air cover, the big dollar cover that we need to get from Washington. One of the things I realized over the last few years is the only time anything really changes for the better for the average American is when there's been federal legislation behind it or that started it. And so that's really what we need to do. There are so many things that are wrong with America now for the average American that we need federal legislation passed that's going to make these things make life better for us all.
According to News 2, you actually ran as an independent against Congressman Sanford in 2014.
Yes.
You received almost 9% of the vote, which from my understanding is almost unheard of for someone who's a write-in candidate.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this just briefly, but why you? Why now again?
That was it. You know, when I ran in 2014, I really was doing it for a different reason, and it was somewhat spur of the moment. It was really an experiment, and I've been an engineer all my life, so I run a lot of experiments, and so experiments I know make some people nervous, but it was an experiment to see how well I do. I was really using it to promote the economics that I had learned over the years, which turns out are entirely counter to everything that Mark Sanford proposes about economics. So that was kind of interesting to find that out. But since running, I made this whole new group of friends in the social justice community here in Charleston. And what I'm running for this year is, again, mostly just to help out my friends here and to help out people in the Low Country. I've become very close to a lot of the issues here. I mean, this is the whole year that in these last couple of years, you know, the whole Black Lives Matter movement has changed America, really. And thankfully, I was right there in the start of the whole thing. So I've been very involved in that over the last year. And I think now, though, like I said, federal legislation is the only thing that's really going to fix America.
You also said this too, going back to what you said about the economics. My slide down the economic slope introduced me to the economic realities and fears most Americans face every day. So tell me, what was that slope like for you?
Well, fortunately, I was pretty wealthy to start with. So my slide down the economic slope took a couple of years, but I ended up being homeless, and I literally was living out of my car for a couple of months.
Wow.
And people say, "Well, when did you decide to turn your life around?" Um, when you're homeless, maybe that's what it is for some people. It might be because they have addictions or something that they're dealing with. But in my case, it was. I never made the choice to not turn my life around. There was nothing wrong with my life. It just happened to be that everything just was not working out. It was almost a comedy after a while. I kept having to ask myself, what is going on? I can't even get a job as a Christmas worker at Macy's. I couldn't get a job as a barista at Starbucks. I couldn't get a job at Home Depot, and nothing, absolutely nothing. And not to mention all of the jobs I wasn't getting in the high-tech industry where I'd spent the previous 27 years. So it was just really amazing. It was one of those situations where you have to ask, why is this happening to me? And fortunately, when I did ask that question, I thought, oh, okay, so somebody's got a plan for me where I'm supposed to learn something, and now I think of it sort of as my humility lesson, and I think maybe that's what I needed to learn.
And you touched on comedy. Was that your secret to really staying afloat, staying emotionally positive?
Yeah, I think it was, and as anybody who's been there can attest, when you're homeless, or even when you're just jobless, you
Right.
still have a home, you still have money.
Right.
It can be very, very depressing, and it was for quite a while for me. But eventually, it got to the point where it was just so ridiculously. I was failing so ridiculously well, no matter what I tried, that I couldn't help but see the humor in it. So yeah, maybe that helped to keep me good. I think I've always been a positive person, and one of the things you learn about yourself when you're driving trucks around America is exactly who you are. And I realized, I'm kind of the person who always looks on the bright side of things, and I try to make the best of a bad situation. So I did that, and while I was driving trucks after
Right.
I was homeless,
Right.
I ended up using that time to educate myself. So I learned about economics and history and government, really. A lot of things that I probably should have learned earlier in my life, but I really didn't. And it's amazing how much you can learn while you're driving 11 hours a day just through listening to
Yeah.
podcasts and audiobooks, and now we even have readers on
Right,
here, so you can
right.
read any web page can be read to you.
Exactly.
So yeah, so it's pretty amazing.
Speaking of government, let's fast forward to now. You said this about being a progressive Democrat.
Yes.
You said this, that you want to fix capitalism and democracy to work for all of us.
Yeah.
Talk to me when you realized that you were a progressive Democrat.
I think I've probably always been a progressive Democrat. I think, though during the George Bush years after 9/11, the neocons, the new conservatives, the whole neocon movement inside of the Republican Party, kind of made a lot of sense to me. I was reading The Economist magazine every
Right.
week. And The Economist, very, very cerebral, and they were making excellent arguments about bringing democracy to the Middle East and how that was going to make everything better in the Middle East, and make life better for all of these people that
Right.
had been living oppressed for so many years. And it was interesting. Right about that time, it was 2003. I'd been working for a number of years for IBM, and I was traveling all over the world.
Right.
It was just what my job was about. But I made a trip to Mumbai, India,
Right.
in the summer of 2003, and I was devastated. I had never seen poverty like that before, and it wasn't so much that it was poverty everywhere. It was poverty right next to extreme wealth. For example, IBM would put us up in great places,
Right.
and I stayed in one of the best hotels I've ever stayed in, and
Wow.
I've stayed in the best hotels pretty much everywhere in the world. Great food, fantastic accommodations, and yet literally just outside the walls
Right.
of the hotel, people were living in shanties up against the walls, and stray dogs walking all over the place.
Wow.
And I have photos that would just bring tears to your eyes. And I was there for 10 days. I call it the worst 10 days of my life, but it It was really an awakening for me. I just didn't know that could happen. And what I realized then was George W. doesn't know. You know, I was there in India during their like 47th anniversary of their independence.
Okay.
So the bringing of democracy to India. Democracy hasn't helped India at all. Well, maybe it's helped a little bit, but
Okay.
there are 900 million people in India who are living on less than $1 a day or something like that. I mean, it was absolutely shocking. Democracy by itself doesn't fix things. It's the rules that democracy sets up for the economy that fixes things. And so that's when I realized that's the way we fix things. And I also realized at that point, I was 43 years old, I'd always thought that whoever we elect to pretty much any office has everybody's best interest in mind. And I realized, you know, George W. and his cronies, they don't. They not only are they ignorant to the way the world works, they don't have the best interest of all of us in mind. And that kind of started me down this whole path of questioning everything. Maybe that's why the universe decided to make me homeless after that, to further my education, to give me the humility. So.
Describe to me the following one word: Dimitri Cherny.
Describe to you what?
You in one word: Dimitri Cherny.
Yeah, we just finished this meeting in here, and
Right.
That's a lot of us were trying to get to that, and I think
Oh.
maybe it's it was unintentional, but it kind of came up. Maybe it's compassionate.
Yeah,
That's the word.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Well, Dimitri Cherny, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Quintin.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that.